You might be the smartest guy. You might know exactly what to do. You might have the best plan. But if you're here, you probably struggle to execute. I've been there, and it sucks. Because you know exactly what to do, you know what steps need to get taken, you know what jobs need to get done. But for some reason, taking that first step feels like you're walking 1,000 miles, like you're climbing Mount Everest. Choose whatever analogy you want. It is so difficult to take that first step, and maybe you don't know why. So I'm driving home from work right now. I'm a counselor. I got about 10 or 15 minutes in the car, and what I'd like to do is kind of go over the overlap between avoidance, procrastination, and overthinking. It might seem a little bit weird that I'm lumping those three things together, but functionally, from a psychological perspective, they all do the same thing. They shield you from failure. This video is part of a broader series that I'm trying to create and put out, because what I see is a lot of guys aren't actually aware that a lot of their problems, the things that are keeping them stuck, are actually emotional patterns. And what I see time and time again in the counseling room, and by the way, I don't share that I'm a counselor because I think that I have access to some hidden knowledge. Actually, what I think is that knowledge is not the secret ingredient that we all think it is. I actually share that I'm a counselor because I just see patterns. I'm lucky enough to hear people's stories, and what they share with me is that when they struggle to execute, specifically through avoidance, through procrastination, through overthinking, really what it is it's a protective mechanism to shield them from failure. So what I would like to do over the next few minutes is go over where did avoidance come from, what are you doing to perpetuate it, to keep it going, and what do you actually do about it to overcome overthinking, procrastination, avoidance. So if you're cool with it, let's just jump right in. Where does avoidance actually come from? What's the origin story to why you started avoiding hardship, discomfort in the first place? And to be clear, you probably don't avoid discomfort in a lot of different areas. It is very likely that you are very disciplined in a lot of life domains, whether it's with nutrition or with your relationships, with your body, with your work. There are plenty of life domains, areas, things in your life where you are dialed in. That's not what we're talking about here. Avoidance actually shows up when we're close to doing something meaningful, when we're close to making real progress. So the origin story is that avoidance is actually adaptive. Avoidance actually was trying to help you. At some point in your life, it was a healthy thing. Maybe at one time, avoidance shielded you from confrontation that would have been too much for however old you were at the time. So I think the first step is really just recognizing that avoidance serves a psychological function, and it's trying to help you. The brain is constantly trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you alive. One of the really difficult lessons of psychology is realizing that your brain doesn't really care if you find meaning or joy or happiness. If it finds something to be predictable or familiar, such as avoidance or procrastination, if it keeps you safe, away from discomfort, it will continue to do that thing. It will make a habit out of avoiding because it keeps you safe. So at some point in your development, avoidance became a survival mechanism. Okay, so now that we have the origin story down, let's go on to step number 2, which is what are you doing to perpetuate it? Now that we know that avoidance may have healthy roots, it was trying to keep you safe, but it's actually a distorted coping mechanism, the question really becomes, what are you doing or thinking on a daily basis to keep that unhealthy coping mechanism alive and well? So here are some good examples. Maybe you want a new job and you know that you need to crank out a couple of applications per day, 10, 20, 30 applications per day, but you find yourself playing video games. Really what you're doing is you're shielding yourself from the potential discomfort of getting rejected. Here's another one. Maybe you need to have a hard conversation with your wife or your girlfriend or a parent, but you actually find yourself doing anything other than that. You find yourself cooking, cleaning, overtime at work, volunteering in the community, anything other than actually leaning into the hard conversation. So let's go over the common culprits that keep you procrastinating, but then let's go over the sneaky ones. So here are the common ones. TV, scrolling, YouTube, food. These are things that you get an immediate dopamine hit. They feel good. These things are a double whammy because now on top of not doing the thing that causes you discomfort, the hard conversation, the application, or maybe it's building a business, whatever it happens to be, on top of avoiding that, which feels good because now you've dodged the discomfort, on top of that, now you're doing something that actually feels good. There's a high rate of pleasure with eating, scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on YouTube, watching shorts. So despite you knowing what to do, you feel like you don't want to do it for whatever reason. Again, that's an emotional pattern that's stopping you from making the progress that you want. That's not a knowledge thing. Here are some of the sneaky culprits, and these things are an absolute pain in the ass because they look good on paper. You could become an absolute rock star at things that don't really move the needle in your life, such as cooking, cleaning, taking care of things around the house, administrative tasks. You can easily justify and rationalize or intellectualize those things. Any cortical process, you can pretty much say, you can justify it. You can say, hey, I'm getting something done, I'm being productive. So really, you see this fork in the road between looking/being kind of busy and actually changing your life. So before we move on to the last piece, I want you to just take a quick scan of your life. How many of those things, YouTube, scrolling on TikTok, food, administrative tasks, cooking, cleaning, how many of those things actually apply to you? Here's one of the big points. Avoidance, procrastination, overthinking, they will not announce themselves. They will not logically say, hey dude, you're actually overthinking again, or hey, you're just avoiding this thing. Usually they come in quietly. It's on us to be able to build up the awareness to recognize when we're actually dodging discomfort. And really, at the end of the day, so much of this is just dodging fear. We are scared. We don't have the faith that if we actually put our best foot forward, our lives will actually improve. So here's the last piece. Now that you know you avoid things to get out of discomfort, what can you do to break that cycle? I want you to think of just one thing. Think of one thing that you actually want and one thing that you are actively avoiding day in and day out, and give me one small step that you could take towards that thing. And here's the risk that we run. If we keep talking about this, if we keep trying to identify every little thing, we will intellectualize this way too much. It does not need to be complicated. In your heart, you probably know 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you are dodging. Those are exactly the things that we need to attack, but you don't need to do it all at once. You can start to pick it off piece by piece. Whatever the rest of your day looks like, once you close out YouTube, I want you to just make a list. Write down 1 or 2 things that you can actually start to chip away at. Keep it tangible, keep it actionable, and stay away from the details. You don't need every little thing to be planned out. You intuitively know what maybe 1 or 2 steps actually looks like to start chipping away at the thing that you care about. Focus on those. Don't get caught up in the prep work or the things that you need to do to get ready to make the list or whatever it is. All that stuff is a petri dish for procrastination. Avoidance, procrastination, all this stuff is a stress response. That's why in therapy we teach this thing called window of tolerance. Your ability to take more, to expose yourself to more discomfort, directly correlates with clinical progress. For the average guy who doesn't have a therapist, you're like, how do I make sense of that? I didn't learn that concept in my clinical training. I actually learned that in the military. If you want to overcome overthinking, procrastination, avoidance, all that stuff, all the baggage that comes with avoiding discomfort, you need to do its opposite. You need to start doing more than thinking. So that's your homework. We'll keep this one short and sweet. If this stuff applies to you, if you keep thinking, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I feel like I know what I need to do, but I just can't seem to take that first step? I've got something for you. It's in the description. It's also in my bio. It's 2 pages. It'll take you about 3 minutes. It's the 7 most common psychological profiles. I probably use too many words to say that, but really what it is it's a good way for you to start figuring out, who am I? Why do I do the things that I do? It'll also put you on an email list where you can communicate with me directly. All that said, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're avoiding and how you plan to overcome it.